not so short, sorry, not so long that it looked like I stopped too short, but short enough that it looks deliberate, but not so that it's too short for me. Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel of crafting, crochet and knitting. My name is Nikki and welcome to my little yarniverse. Well, hello! Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're a returning viewer. Well done if you're a returning viewer, because it has been a while. I think we probably saw that coming though, right? Because there were several videos where I was just like, it was months between, it was started by being weeks and it was months between videos, and then I just disappeared altogether. As you can imagine, I was just burning out. I wasn't really myself. I had tough few years, and let's be real, I never really got back into things off the back of those few years. I needed to take some time out, and I needed this to be something that I sat down and recorded because I was ready to, not because I felt like I had to. And so back in January, I really felt like I had to put out that video and to kickstart the channel again for a year, and I really did have every intention of doing that. But I've just been, over the last few months, I gave myself permission to stop, because I needed to look after me, I needed to look after my mental health, I needed to look after my physical health. So I spent a lot more time being outdoors, especially recently in the UK. We've had some great weather. I've been on walks almost every day, I've been swimming, and I've been knitting without any obligation to share it. And I love you guys, but I just needed that. I just needed a pause. So thank you for bearing with me, and I'm not going to say, well, hopefully these will be more regular now, but I am going to say that, you know, I'm feeling better, and so the chance that I'm going to sit down and record something over the next few months, you know, it's going to be higher. So, and I do have plans, I do have stuff to show you. I still have Scotland to show you. That was just amazing, and I really want to talk about our trip to Scotland. I've got loads of footage, but that was another thing that was bothering me, right? Because I've got so much footage of Scotland. I just would sit down and look at it, and I just couldn't sit there and edit it. There was so much of it, and I've got a plan now. I've got some more energy now, so I'm hoping that will be coming out soon. I'm part of the way there, but you know, it does have to be edited, so please bear with me. But thank you for bearing with me so far. I'm so glad that you're still here, and welcome if you're new as well. I have been knitting, and I do have a lot to show you. And I'm sort of debating, like, do I show you everything? Do I tell you all my plans? Do I save something for another video? But let's see what happens. At the very least, let me show you some of the things that I've been working on recently. So if you are a returning viewer, then you will have seen this before, but don't worry, I'm not going to talk about this particular item for very long. It's just for context, especially if we have some new people. It's basically the first colourwork jumper that I made, and this is something that I was scared to do, but I was wanting to do and planning to do for absolutely ages. I just always wanted to make colourwork jumpers, but I was really struggling. I was making plain jumpers as a practice run, and they were just going wrong in all the ways. I would be doing sizes that were too big for me. I would have really baggy arms, really baggy chest, and I was like, what is going on? I now understand what's going on. So I was following instructions, and I was putting out bust sizes for the jumpers, and as someone who is heavier in the chest, the scaling doesn't quite work. And so actually the best advice that I saw after watching other YouTubers was to actually take the upper bust as the measurement for the size you then pick, and then to add stitches. So that's what I had done with this jumper. This is the Moon and Stars jumper. It's well, I think it's the Moon Phases Sweater is its full title. It's on Ravelry, it's free. I'm a sciencey, astro-y person, so I absolutely just fell in love with this when I saw it. And what I did was I took this jumper and I followed the advice. I picked the upper bust. I then worked out how much I would have to add because of my chest. I was a little bit worried at first because I also do have bigger arms, and so I was scared that if I picked my upper bust I wouldn't be accommodating for my arms. but by adding the number of stitches that I did, I was able to redistribute that a little bit. I added stitches between the motifs at the front, but then also I went slightly further around to the sides to give me just a little extra room for my arms, and I added more stitches under the arms as well. So I think normally they tell you to add 6 or 8 stitches. I actually added 12 stitches, and this has, at the time, it fit perfectly. It was exactly what I needed at the time. It's a bit baggy now, but it's just kind of looks oversized now. It's not terrible, but it taught me everything I needed to know about how to shape my body better. And it, you know, I did short rows on the neckline as well, you can see there, because there's more around the back, which was definitely the right decision. I wish I'd done short rows at the bottom as well, because it actually rides up my back a bit, whereas I would prefer it to sink. So that's something I've learnt. So this is not the perfect jumper, but it is so much better than any jumper that I had made up until that point, and it was the inspiration to start a lot more colourwork jumpers. I've got a lot of colourwork jumpers planned. So one that I did was this. I'm a, like I say, astrophysicsy, starry, moony, planety person, and I wanted a starry pattern. So I didn't want to try and find one and then hash it together with the pattern I really found that I liked. I found a pattern and I liked it, and I was going to stick to it. So what I did was I took the graph for the moon phases and I drew it out onto some squared paper. I then made the adjustments that I had made on the graph paper, represented on the graph paper, and then I drew in the space. I drew some different sized stars, tried to make them fit in the graph paper, and I then shaded places that were like definitely covered on the inside of the star, and then when I had the shading in place I rubbed out my little outlines and tried to think, okay, well, you know, does that look exactly starlight? Do I need to add another one here to actually give it more of a point? And I just tweaked it until I had this, and I'm so happy with it. There are, again, some problems. So things that went well first, still loving having the short rows on the neckline. That was definitely a good decision. It works better than a previous jumper where the short rows there were really strange because they almost came in too far and it ended up being very boxy around the neckline, whereas this only kind of came, I think the first one's maybe there or something. So it's really not obvious. It definitely worked better than my previous attempts have done, so I've kept that in. I've kept the graph size in place, so this is nearly the same size as my previous jumper, but what I did do was when I was finishing the work on this, I was a couple of rows away from the bottom of the graph, and I lost a lot of weight already by this point, and so I decided that instead of adding the 5th extra stitch in each motif gap that I had added before, I was going to keep it at just the 4. So I add 5 stitches on the navy jumper. I added 5 stitches between various motifs at the front. This time I only added 4. And that did mean that the torso was actually better shaped to my new body shape at that time, but things that went wrong, I forgot to do that on the arms. So, well, not that I forgot to not add stitches on the arms, but I forgot to adjust the arms. So I adjusted the torso and not the arms. So now I've got really baggy arms and a torso that fits. So it's not terrible, but there is a bit of bunching that happens. So that's not great. I also made it too short. So, I mean, not that you can really tell without me wearing it, but it sits a lot higher than the navy one does. It sits better than the navy one does. So actually most of the length on the navy one is at the front, because that's another good thing I did, sorry. I added some short rows to the lower back in this jumper, which was absolutely the right decision. The problem I have with the navy jumper is that the front sits way too low and the back of the jumper rides up my back, so I corrected it here. I added short rows to the back to give me extra length, but the overall length is still not enough, and that's because I salvaged this yarn from a previous project. So if you've been here since 2021, I think the start of this channel, then you will have seen me make a granny square cocoon cardigan. I liked it at the time, but I never wore it because it didn't suit me at all. I didn't really enjoy wearing it. It rolled a lot as well, like the seaming for, like, I suppose it's like the button band, but not a button band, but it's also then comes round and it becomes your cuffs as well. It all rolled up on itself, which was not nice. Yeah, didn't work. So I actually unwound all of it, and because I unwound all of it, I was using like little balls of yarn from where I've done the cuffs or where I've done the hem, or I was using slightly small balls of yarn that were to get the original size, because I obviously started by using one ball until I ran out, and then I added another one in order to go to add to the right size, and so I had a couple of balls of yarn that were intact and several that were not intact. And as I was working my way down this jumper, I was getting very close to what I thought was the end, and I was getting to the end of a ball of yarn, so I started to rush to try and get the ribbing in, and ultimately ended up starting that ribbing too soon because I'd actually not got enough yarn. I'd run out of yarn. I ended up adding a ball of yarn that I thought would be enough to finish the ribbon, which was not enough to finish the ribbon. And so there's actually 3 different places at the bottom of this jumper where I had ends to weave in, which I'm not happy about, and it's still not long enough. And I have enough yarn left that I could have just quit while I was ahead and just added a new ball of yarn and kept going. But the problem is that I had also started the short rows when I was running out of yarn. So I did the short rows in 2 sections rather than one big section because I wanted it to be less obvious. So I did 2 short rows first, and then some normal rows, and then 2 more short rows. So, and then I started the rib. So if I was to try and cut into this, I have to work out where my short rows are, and I'd have to pick up stitches on a non-short row, and then I'd have to probably even pick things up before I started the short rows, knit the extra length, then add the short rows back in again nearer the rib, because again, I don't want the short rows to be obvious, but I do need them. So the reason I haven't done it yet is because I just can't be bothered to work all of that out. I don't want to unpick the binding, because my favourite binding is to do like the Kitchener stitch bind off, which is a lot of sewing, and I'm not unpicking that. So I would probably just cut this off, and I guess in the sense that I don't think I would know how to then, well, I do know how to graft it back on, but I wouldn't want to work around the short rows. As you can tell, I just don't want to think about it. So it works as a jumper. Yes, it's a little bit short, but it is perfectly wearable. So I'm just going to live with it for now, and when it starts to annoy me, I'll sort it out. So yes, some good and bad things about this jumper, but again, very important lessons for the next one. And I managed to use, I think it was 3.5 balls of yarn. 3.5 balls of yarn, or was it less? Maybe it was only like 3 balls of yarn of the purple colour, and then half a ball of yarn, maybe not even half a ball, on the yellow, because it's not as involved as the motif for the moons. The moons was using a bit more yarn, I think, than the stars ended up using. Motif wise, I wish that I had pulled them out a little bit more and filled the space more, because it's not as obvious on the back. There's still a lot of purple space between the motifs, so it is kind of obvious, but it's not as obvious as on the front, because on the front we've got the normal purple space, but we've got the additional stitches that I added because of my chest, and so there were these big spaces between motifs. And so another lesson to take into a future project is to spread them out a little bit more, or to add some filler in there, because otherwise it's sort of very jarring. It's not the biggest motif. It's nice because it doesn't look like a band of colour work, which some jumpers can look like a band of colour work, but it doesn't fill all the space, so just some tweaking that would be needed there. But overall, happy to have another jumper that I can wear. And of course, these were all important steps to being able to make the next jumper. So I'm loving the fact that those jumpers both used nearly an entire pack of yarn. So most of my acrylic DK yarn I've bought from Aldi back in the past when they did 4 balls of yarn for £4 or £5. Really good steal, really great way to get DK. Not been as inspired by their colours recently, also just not needed colours recently. I've got so much yarn. This box behind me, this box, and then there's another actual like full-blown 30-litre tub of yarn on top there, is still all acrylic DK that I've gotten at some point from Aldi. So I don't need any more. But it's been great to actually use some of it. So the navy one was yarn that I massively overestimated how much I needed for a blanket. I did not want to run out because the previous blanket I made, I ran out. And so I determined not to run out again. I massively overbought. I had, hang on, how many do I have? I still have 2 whole packets left. And I used a packet on that one. And then I used the leftovers from that jumper to make a beanie for my mother-in-law. So I don't need, I massively over catered for that blanket. And then the purple one, I bought 3 packs of that colour back in the day because it's my favourite colour. Actually, it looks a little pinker on camera, I think, than it is in real life. It's very much a mid purple colour, right? Like, it's a classic grape. It's not too blue, it's not too pink. It is like exactly what I think of when I think purple. And I loved it so much I bought 3 packets of it, so 12 balls. I've used one to make the cocoon cardigan in the past and then didn't like it, so I've reused that on this. I've still got yarn in this cupboard. No? Might have moved into this one recently. I've got yarn in this cupboard that is all my purple shades. So I'm just loving that I'm making my way through so much yarn as a result. In fact, you know what? There we go. You can see, in fact, actually this is the colour. That is the colour I used on the jumper. That grape there. But you can see how much space. There are, I think, 3 packs between this ridge here and here of yarn in different coloured purples. It's too much and I need to use it. So that's the plan. I've been trying to make my way through all of those, and the jumpers have been an excellent way to make my way through some of those packets. You can see that if I'm going to do purple stuff, it's going to take me a while. But the worst situation was that I stockpiled on a lot of 400-gram balls of yarn from Hobbycraft. And I saw this yarn, it was on 3 for 2. Aran, so thicker, and there was this beautiful burgundy shade, and I love me a burgundy as well as a purple. Beautiful burgundy shade, and I just thought I need to make something out of that. It's so pretty. There was like a mustard yellowy gold, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, that too. And I picked those up, and then the next time I went back, I was like, oh, there's a really nice white this time, and that goes really well with the burgundy to make a Christmas jumper that isn't the usual like very bright and bold red and green, but it would be this really nice burgundy and creamy, like just off-white, not cream, but just off-white. So I picked up those. And at the same time, I saw a really lovely emerald and a silver, and I thought that would work for my husband. And my husband met me in the shop and he saw it and thought, yeah, he'd have that. So I bought those as well. And then I was worried that I wouldn't have enough, and I ended up buying some more burgundy, and at the same time picked up an orange because this was the first time I'd seen an orange, and it was very nice orange as well, like a nice autumnal orange, really matched the burgundy. So before I knew it, I had minimum 12 balls of these of this yarn, and it was a 400-gram skein of yarn each. So I just couldn't store it anywhere, right? I managed to squish 9 balls into this cupboard at one point, and I don't know how I managed it, because every time I tried to store it on my shelf previously, it would burst at the seams. The other ones, I think I must have put them in this basket I have on the floor, because I don't know where else I was storing it at the time. I'd totally forgotten where they were. And they were, for me at the time, the most daunting thing, because I bought them in full knowledge that I wanted to make colourwork sweaters, and I hadn't at this point made a colourwork sweater. So having made the 2 that I've shown you, the navy moon one and then the purple starry one, that was what gave me the confidence to be able to do colourwork jumpers out of these massive balls of yarn that I bought. and they're going to take a lot more work, because I have to, in order to make those, I would have to do some more design work, right? So I'd have to take those graphs again, and with all the adjustments, and then draw stuff out on them the way that I would want them to be. I would have to take into consideration how they're drawn out based on my body size and adding stitches. So my husband, I can just do it as a symmetrical circle because he doesn't need the front. But when I do mine, I'm going to have to seriously consider where I put the increases to not get in the way of the pattern. And then I also needed to do a check that this is Aran yarn, not DK yarn. So will the needle sizes and the adjustments that I've previously made fit properly with this Aran yarn, or will it be too big? So with all that said, we cracked into one of them and we made an autumn leaves jumper. It is my favourite. I love it so much. I know this is going to is it pill, it's pilling, isn't it? I know this is going to pill, I know it's going to get all bobbly and fuzzy, but until then I'm just going to love it, because it's all the lessons I learned are in this jumper. So lesson number 1 was just size. So I learned with the purple one that the arms were too big, I'd lost a lot of weight, it was time to go down a size. But what I didn't realise until too late was that I had drawn the graph for the previous size, because I had looked at the one of the graphs for the size down. So the size down had 2 graphs, and I assumed they were the same size. So I looked at them and I saw that the stitch count was 1 less by the time you got to the end of the yoke, but at the start of the yoke you had the same number of stitches, or so I thought. Because the second graph had the same number of stitches at the end of the yoke, but it had 1 less stitch at the start of the yoke, and so I got the wrong size. So that was a problem, and in the end what we did was we just did the neckline as it was before for the previous size. We just got to the start of the yoke, and we had the start of the yoke be a certain number of stitches as if it was the previous size, and then knowing that it's not going to increase by as much because there's 12 pattern repeats. I think it's 12 pattern repeats, which means 12 fewer stitches by the end of the yoke. So it's like, okay, that will be sufficient. And then also knowing that I was adding only 4 stitches in total to the front rather than my previous 5 on the navy jumper, so that would again mean it was ever so slightly smaller. And I thought this should be enough, because I'm not faffing around reprinting this entire graph because I forgot that there was 1 fewer stitches, or didn't notice there was 1 fewer stitches in the graph at the start. So we made that work and it was fine. But size wise it was really important to have fewer stitches on the torso, because my arms in the purple jumper, there is about like 2 or 3 inches of spare fabric on each arm, and I don't need that anymore. So that was the start that we needed. The second thing that we did was that under the arms, instead of adding 12 stitches, which is what I've previously done because I have bigger arms, I only added, I think I only added 6. I think I was that confident that it would be okay. And maybe that was maybe a mistake, but you do also, one thing I didn't mention with those jumpers is you do also add stitches when you join in the sort of the gap that starts to form between where the old stitching is that's gone all the way down the yoke and where you picked up the stitches. You get a gap developed, so you add, you know, if I was adding 12 stitches before, I was then also adding an extra stitch at the join, so I was actually adding 14 overall, which was too many. So I added 6, and I just thought if I add 6 it should be fine, because I'm going to add a stitch at each end as well, so that's going to bring me up to 8. And then the other thing is that because of how I pick up my stitches, I actually add another 1 stitch. I'll explain that in a bit. So I kind of figured, okay, actually no, I'm going to have enough stitches if I add 6 stitches. So that was a bit daring because this is like the smallest I've done before, but I thought no, it's fine, I've lost the weight. I can have smaller arms. They were baggy on the navy one, they were really baggy on the purple one. Just take the risk, it'll be fine. We can redistribute them, we can add more stitches if we need to the torso. So I trusted the process. That's what we did, and it worked out fine. And the other thing that I did was, as well as keeping the short rows in the yoke there, I realised from the starry motif that I needed to bring the motifs into more overlap. So the motifs in general, I dared to put them closer to the edges of the motif, not so close that they would interfere with adding stitches, but close enough that they would be really pushing up to the edges and would close up that red space. In this case it was purple space on the starry jumper, but red space here. And then the other thing I did is that, knowing that I was adding up to 4 extra stitches to the bottom of the yoke, by the time I got to the bottom of the yoke I was adding extra stitches in the front, I changed the motif ever so slightly. So when I got to the times that I was adding stitches in the front, I moved a leaf over by 1 or over by 2. I think the pumpkins moved over by 2 and the leaves moved over by 1. And so what I was doing was I was redistributing that red space. The red space was going to be there because I was adding red space because of it being the front of my jumper. But rather than it being all down the motif gap, I actually moved some of the red space, sort of opened up this gap more. And so these are more even gaps and they don't look... So you'd have to guess, okay, well, did I put the divide there or did I put the divide there? And if you realise, okay, yeah, well, that's the only place that there is red all the way down, then you know that that's where the motif breaks. But it's so much more subtle on this jumper that I think if I hadn't told you, you might have been second guessing, oh, well, did you add your stitches in the middle of a motif? Did you do it down the middle of the leaf or something? I don't know. So yes, really happy with that. I'm trying to think what else I've done differently on this one. I kept the short rows at the back of the jumper, so you can't see them, but I did the same thing in that I added 2 short rows and then I did some straight rows and then I did 2 more short rows just to break it up so it's not like an obvious arc of fabric that's in the back that's not in the front. And the extra length, so I just kept going on this one until I was happy with the length. No trying to second guess myself. I had plenty of yarn. We just went until we had the right amount of length on it, and we worked with that. And we also took the arms ever so slightly longer as well. So with the navy one, I stopped a bit short because I thought that the yarn would drop into place, and it didn't drop into place, it just got wider. With this one I actually made the arms slightly longer so that it wouldn't have to drop, because I didn't want to trust it to drop into place. I don't like my cuffs to come all the way up to my wrists. I like to have my watch free and ready. I like to not poke holes in it when I'm doing my knitting, because if my double pointed needles poke into my wrists, then they're going to poke into the cuffs of my knitted jumpers. So I wanted it to be shorter than a normal jumper, not so short, sorry, not so long that it looked like I stopped too short, but short enough that it looks deliberate, but not so that it's too short for me. And I think I got that right on this jumper. And then the other thing I said I was going to tell you about this jumper. Now, I've done this on all my jumpers, but what I do is when I pick up my stitches, I pick them up in a very particular way. So when you're knitting the yoke, you're knitting this way, and then you'll pick the torso stitches up and you'll go this way. So your V stitches are actually pointing downwards, and so you've actually got little arrows pointing up. That's where your stitches are. And if you then pick the stitches up in line with the previous 6 you made, you pick up 6 stitches, then you're working this way. So actually what you'll have is the original stitches of the torso will be going like this, and the stitches for the arms will be going like this, and they'll meet as a little hourglass, and it'll be obviously misaligned. So I try to realign it by picking stitches up between stitches, and it's maybe not so obvious, but like here you can see that actually I've made it so that they keep going the same direction. I didn't do the best job on this one because I think I actually added my stitches slightly differently than I would ordinarily. So there's actually a little bank of stitches that haven't fully pulled into place to keep the pattern going. It was a little bit better, I think, on this one. If I can show you, it's already started to fuzz up too much on the navy jumper, but you can kind of see these stitches all pointing up there. So it just brings them back into line. It does mean you have an extra stitch, so you have to decrease that stitch by the time you get to the ribbing, because otherwise you have an odd number of stitches, and if a 1x1 rib or 2x2 rib you would need an even number of stitches, but that's fine because you can kind of just, as you purl the last stitch in your row of a 1x1 rib, you can just purl two together and it's pretty unnoticeable. I mean, I've got one here somewhere and I at a glance can't find it very quickly. It's technically there, but I mean, no one's going to see that. So yes, I'm technically adding 7 stitches instead of 6 stitches because I'm going in between the stitches, but I think it lines everything up nicely, and I just have to decrease that extra stitch when it comes to doing the 1x1 rib. So that is the other jumper I've made. That is a lot of jumpers. I've also been doing some smaller things, so let me grab those to show you those. Okay, so the first things that I've been doing are very simply some granny squares. So these are the Harmony granny square pattern. I think that this is an attic pattern, but I'm not 100% sure. I hope it is. If not, I'll put it in the comments, in the description, what the correct pattern is. But it's the Harmony granny square, and we have been making these blanket squares together as a craft group, and they've been stitched together for people who we think sort of need a little bit of love and care at the moment, and we've been making them blankets. And the reason I still have these two is because I really love these colours, and I did keep 2 for myself, and I've pinned them up to my notice board because I felt like my room needed a little bit more crafty decoration, so I've just pinned these up. And yeah, it's basically, I've been working my way through most of my scraps. I took a bag of scraps, this bag, this long like drawstring bag situation. This was full of scraps, and I took it with me on holiday recently, and I just kept kept crocheting lots and lots of granny squares. It was really easy to kind of get out and about because I didn't want to take my jumpers with me because they were really big and bulky projects, whereas if I took this with me, it was lots of little balls of yarn, and I've actually managed to whittle it down to this much left. So there is still some in here. I was getting to the point where I stopped having colours that really went well with each other, so I'm just going to keep this as scrappy yarn that I can take with me to teach people how to crochet at an event that we're going to soon. So that's what I was working on, just really whittling down those scraps, because let's face it, I'm going to end up with more scraps eventually, and so I just really went for it, and then kept these 2 because they are nice autumnal colours and I thought they would go nicely in my room. And the other thing that I've been working on is, well, that I worked on was these. I can't remember if I showed you these in January or not. I can't remember if I cast these on in January. I think I cast these on for Christmas, which is why I think I might have showed you in January. I love the yarn colour and I love the pattern. The pattern is Comet by West Yorkshire Spinners. I don't like them together. So thankfully I have more of this yarn. So having spoken about how I want to get rid of yarn, I did buy yarn recently because a yarn store that I know of was closing down, and they were selling off West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn for £5 a ball, and also just some random balls of yarn for £1. So I've now got loads of Jameson and Sons and some Kinross and some acrylic cotton and West Yorkshire Spinners that I got on the cheap, and I had nowhere to put it. So I took all the jumpy yarn out of this cupboard, and I've managed to squash it all in here. I think. Don't think all of it's in there actually. I think some of it might be in a bag over there. But yes, I will be making something again out of this colour because I love the colour. Like I say, love the colour. Don't like the colour pattern combination. So it's got this really nice rib patterning to it. It's not a classic 1x1. I think, do they call it fisherman's rib when the number of knitting and purl stitches in the rib are different to each other? Is that like a generic term, or is that a very specific rib term? But even so, like, there's more knitting stitches than purl stitches, so it gives this slightly bouncy look to it, but it's not a 1x1 or a 2x2 rib. And then it's got a pattern in it, and I just don't think you're going to be able to see the pattern because the pattern is just totally washed out. And the pattern is just totally washed out by the pattern on the colour, which is such a shame because, like, do you know how much effort it took to make these socks? I had to pay so much attention to where I was increasing, decreasing, yarning over. They're not true cables, you don't have to use a cable needle, so it wasn't that bad, but I'm just really annoyed because these took ages to do and you can't even see it. And what's worse is I noticed when I pulled them out this morning, the pattern goes all the way down to the toe. So you do all this complicated pattern all the way up to the toe, and it's, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't even see, but it's felting. It's like fuzzing and felting together at the toe where I've worn these in shoes, which is really disappointing. And like, it's fine that it's felting in the sense of, I realised a little while ago that I make socks to wear them, and if I just wear them around the house, then I never get to like show them off or enjoy them going out and about. So I wear socks out and about now. It's something I do now, it's just to wear them out and about. But I don't know if it's just because these were too big and so they move a lot in my foot, or if it's because I spent all that time on the pattern and you can't even see the pattern, that I'm upset that they felted. So I think in future I won't go all the way down the foot with a pattern like this, because yeah, like I say, I don't mind the felt. They're felt on the bottom all the time, but the fact it's felted on the top where I've done the pattern upsets me a bit. It's a really lovely colour, and I picked up 3 extra balls I think in this colour from the shop that was shutting down. So I can make something, I can even make more socks out of this, or I can make something surely out of this, because I think the thing I like about this yarn is the colour. And then I think I've got loads of plain colours that I could make this pattern with again if I want to do this pattern in a sock again. So that's what I'll do. So I do have those, they are finished. And the other thing is they're 2.5mm, the pattern called for 2.5mm, which I kind of understand because it's got rib stitches in it, so it's probably thinking, okay, well it will pull in and have negative ease unless you go up a size. But I wish I hadn't, because I think my 2.25s would have been better because they're too big. So yes, I think if I'd have spoken about these months ago, I would have been raving about how pretty they are, but actually, as they've not stood the test of time. So maybe it's a good thing that it's taken so long for me to get to this video. So pattern, tick, yarn, tick, together. So that's another thing that I have been working on, or had worked on, in the last, what, 4-5 months. Oh, right, I've just seen something on the side that I didn't talk about, that I was meant to talk about with this jumper. If you recognise any of these patterns in the States, then you would be correct, because they came from these. So, I'm based in the UK. I have seen American YouTubers talking about these and getting really jealous of them because they look amazing. They're basically like a little deck of cards, but each card, instead of having a number and a suit on them, has got a pattern on them. So they are quite expensive because you are paying for a lot of patterns. I mean, so this one says it's got 51 autumnal doodles in it because this is the autumn deck, and this one has 24 in it. This is the Rhinebeck deck. So they are quite expensive because you're paying for the patterns, but I still really love them. And I can get them online. I did look and I could get them online, but I just didn't know how the postage would work out. And then I found a store that sold them in the UK. So I'm pretty sure that the cost of postage will have been added, and the marketing it up has been added to the decks. But I kind of, this way I get to support a local business who is supporting a local, who is supporting a not local business but a small business out in the States. So this way I get to support 2 businesses by doing this, and I do really love them. And they had the 2 that I absolutely would have been top of my list. So it's the autumn deck, so you can see the leaves on the front there, there's a pumpkin. It does also have a lot of Halloween stuff. I'm not going to use Halloween stuff. I'm not a fan of Halloween. So that's a shame, because like half of this deck isn't useful to me. But there's a lot of useful autumnal stuff. So there's leaves, there's umbrellas there, there's pumpkins, there's acorns and things like that. So still definitely wanted it. Still worth buying this for me. In fact, if I crack open it, I'm not going to show you. I'm going to open them down here. I'm not going to show you because that would be wrong, but just to remind myself, yes, there's so many leaf patterns. There's like 13 different leaf patterns. There's like 3 pumpkin patterns. Oh, there's coffee mugs. There's coffee mugs in here, so that's gonna be great because my husband is a big fan of coffee, and making it from like bean to cup situation, so I can do him like a coffee cowl or something, which would be really cute. There's some Moony Star ones, there's mushrooms, there's acorns, lots of acorns, there's foxes, I forgot about the foxes, there's umbrellas, there's rain boots and raindrops, and there's a couple of florally, viney, generic patterns there, and then we get into and some geometric ones, but then we get into like the Halloween ones. So more than half the deck actually is stuff that I will use. So that's good. Really happy with that one. And then, so that's the autumn one. And then this is more like a booster pack, because this one's got 24 in it. And this is the Rhinebeck pack. And you can see on the front there that it comes, because it's the yarn festival that happens, I think it happens in October. If you're out in the States or you've been to Rhinebeck, then do correct me, but I'm pretty sure it happens out in October sometime. And that means that for them, they're upstate, so they have absolutely loads of gorgeous autumnal trees at that point. So there's some autumny things in here too, but there's also like sock patterns and yarn patterns and sheep patterns and jumper patterns. So this is just a really good one as well. And let me crack into this one off camera again and talk about what I've got in here. So absolutely loving the yarn ones. There's yarn balls and skeins. There's several leaves. How many leaves in that one? There's 6 different leaf patterns in that one. There's pumpkins, there's rabbits, there's a couple of sheep and alpaca. I forgot about the alpaca. There's socks, a couple of jumpers, hats and scarves and cowls, some music notes. I don't know why there's music notes. I don't know, is it just like festival-y music that plays whilst people are walking around? There's some leaves, there's some trees and apples, because I think, do they have like an orchard nearby? They always sell, everyone always talks about like apple cider things that they sell. And then there's some florals. So a little bit of a smaller deck, but there's still absolutely loads in there. And it's basically the combination of the leaves in these 2 that I put together and turned into my jumper. So I think everything except the acorn, the mushroom, and maybe that leaf. I can't remember. I might have taken that leaf from a smaller, like a different pattern, but then taken the leaf out of the pattern. So these are all, I guess like they're more like pattern repeats. So like usually like 8 or 12 or 24 pattern repeats. And I wanted to take the main features off of them and stitch them together into my own patterns. So that's why they're not like, strictly speaking, I haven't taken this one for example, I haven't taken the leaves around there, but you can kind of see if I turn it like this, that the leaf in the corner there is very similar to that leaf. So I took the main features and I stitched them together into my own pattern for this, but they're from here. So I want to give credit where credit is due. So this is the Specific Knit Company. They do doodle decks. They do one for each season. They do some for cities, so you can get city-based ones. They've obviously got the Rhinebeck one. They also do like just like extra like holiday-ish ones, so like an actual Christmas one, or that will then complement the winter one, or an Arctic one. I can't remember exactly what they all are, but if you look through them, they've got so many themes. They did also have a dinosaur one, and I was so tempted to get the dinosaur one, but I'm not actually a dinosaur person. Like, as in, I like dinosaurs, everyone likes dinosaurs, but like, it's not like my thing. And so if I got the dinosaur one, I'd be doing it as such a gimmick. But I do know people in my life where I'm thinking, oh, well, I could do that. But it was a little bit expensive to justify getting that deck to maybe make one jumper for this person. And I'm not going to make it anytime soon. So we just know to go back, right? To go back and to get more in future. So the collector in me now does want them all, even though, like, realistically, I'm not going to use a dedicated Halloween deck or yeah, I don't know. So I have to be very picky about which ones I collect. But these two were the top of my list of which ones to get. So I'm really glad to have them. So yeah, sorry, just randomly going back to this jumper after I'd already like finished talking about it, just to say where all those patterns came from. So I didn't do it completely from scratch like I did the starry one, but I did stitch some things together. You know what, like, I've now just totally lost track of what I have and haven't spoken about. So what's left to discuss? Upcoming plans. I think I touched on this, and I can't remember. I think I touched on this, but I spoke about having all of those balls of Aran yarn from Hobbycraft that are going to be different jumpers. So I've cast on, but I have not yet got to the colour work, so I won't show you yet. I've cast on the Christmas jumper that I'm going to make for my husband. So I've only done the neckline so far. But I've done the pattern, obviously. So again, draw out the charts. I don't have to worry about too many adjustments with this one because I don't add stitches. I'm not going to add stitches for him. So I've drawn out the chart. The one adjustment I'm going to have to make though is that the chart for all these previous jumpers has stopped, and then you divide for the sleeves, whereas my husband wants it to go down just a little bit further. So I'll have to do some colour work around the torso and some colour work around the sleeves. So I'm going to have to work out what the stitch repeat is for those, which is actually quite terrifying because I think I might get them wrong. I don't know. I haven't planned that out. I haven't planned that far yet. So that's something. That's probably why it's going to take me a little bit longer to do that. And then I'm going to have to do mine, and mine's going to take so much planning because I'm going to have to work out all of those stitch repeats, but how to do them around the adjustments that I've made for myself, because the two jumpers I'm making are going to be a lot more Fair Isle in their aesthetic. They're going to be quite banded. They're going to have a band of reindeer or a band of snowflakes, and that's going to make it a bit more joined together where the leaves one weren't, right? So the fact that I moved a leaf by one stitch didn't look wrong, but with the Christmassy Fair Isle ones, if I move something, it's going to be in relation to something else and it might not look right. So I'm a bit worried about that. I've told my husband of my suspicions of like how some of them might look more obvious than others in terms of like them being offset, and he said that he doesn't mind, but we'll see. I will see what it looks like on him because he might not mind, but I might not want to wear that myself. So I've got loads of planning to do. I also have a whole other sweaters quantity of burgundy with mustard, goldy, yellow, and I've got loads of the orange left because I only used about 100 grams of the orange in the autumn sweater. So oh, I don't know if I said you need 2 balls of your main colour and 1 ball of your contrast colour if you're going to do those. So if you're going to go to Hobbycraft and get that yarn, just be warned, you're going to need two main and 1 contrast. I don't know how it's going to work for Fair Isle though, so I've got loads of orange left, so I think we'll be fine. But I'm also going to mix things up and actually have moments where I bring the contrast colour into the background and I put the background colour out in front. So I'm going to have to think about my yarn dominance in those situations. I'm going to have to think about how much yarn I have. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that all the time because I don't have that much white, or I don't have that much yellow or orange or silver. So that needs some thought. I think it should be okay as long as I only maybe do it like once as like a highlight band, but we'll find out. The mustard yellow, what I'm thinking of is maybe actually trying to do 3 colour with the mustard yellow and the orange, but we're not there yet. So that one might have to wait. They might have to be balls of yarn that do stay in my stash. But that's fine, because I've also got some balls of yarn that I would want to then move to after finishing those. So I've still got 3 balls of cotton yarn that I'd always intended to turn into a cardigan of some description. I've got 2 in another colour that I was maybe thinking a vest top. And now that I've played around with at least the DK, and I know that I can do a jumper with 4 balls of DK, I think I should be safe to be able to do a t-shirt, maybe not cardigan, maybe a t-shirt with the cotton yarn instead. So I'm going to use that as the starting point for trying to get my sizes right in a completely different yarn weight, ready for when I want to use my fingering weight wool to do something as well. So I've got a couple of options where I'm looking at it thinking, right, let's not even try and do a jumper unless we're sure we have enough yarn left at the end. Let's aim for a t-shirt, and we'll do the cotton as the practice run, and then we'll know the measurements for the fingering weight wool yarn and see how it goes. And then I will have all the measurements I need to continue with the sweater quantities that I have. So I have other yarn where I have 4 or 5 skeins, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get a jumper out of that. And some people might say, oh, well, you only need 3, so maybe I'll have loads left. I don't know. But that's the thing, I didn't know. I haven't known my size in jumpers until this experiment, and so I just bought plenty, and if I end up making extra stuff out of it, then fine, I end up making extra stuff out of it. But I wanted to definitely have enough and not run out. So that's where we're at with those. We'll try a t-shirt first. If we have enough, we'll make a jumper. It's a lot, and it's going to involve a lot of designing, and every time I make a jumper it's taking me about a month to a month and a half, depending on how much knitting time that I have. So we're already talking, by the time that I finished my husband's jumper, we're going to be mid-June. I don't want to make a jumper in June. That's going to be so warm, but I have to try and stay focused on this. I'm trying to get the stash down. So I'm going to finish his in mid-June, and then if I start mine straight away, then we're going to be talking about finishing that early August. And then if I try and make one of the t-shirts, that's probably going to take me through to mid-September. And then if I try and make the other one, that's going to take me to the start of November. And at that point, I do have other things I want to make. I would like to make a Christmassy shawl for myself out of a skein of yarn that I've had for a while that is very Christmassy. I'd like to wear that this year, and I haven't found a pattern yet. So if you have any great patterns for one skein, then send them through to me. I'm going for Christmassy, but I'm letting the colour do the work. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. I also have Christmassy socks I want to make, because I've got absolutely loads of last year's West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas colourway in socks after my trip to the closing down yarn store. So I'm going to make socks at some point, but again I need about 2 weeks to do that, and I really want to make a nativity scene. So my husband got me a Arakirumi nativity book years ago, like we are talking 2020 or 2021 at this point, and I kept saying to myself, oh, that'd be an excellent advent project, and then I keep not doing it because I keep having other things, because all my friends keep getting pregnant and having babies at the end of the year or early like January, and I keep making loads of baby stuff instead, and I would like an advent to myself to do something for me. So this year that's what I want to do, but I need time, and if I cannot do all of this. So we're gonna try to get through as many of the big jumper projects as possible to really just make some space in my room again, because I'm running out of space. This chair right now, all the bags that were on it have been put on my office chair just so I can sit down and record to you today, and I would like this chair back. That's my goal. I would like this chair back permanently and it not to be a dumping ground for the yarn that I buy that I don't need to buy, because this is full and the boxes on top of this are full. That's gotta stop. I've got to have more space in my life. So that's the aim this year. It's not to go stash less, but it is to definitely start stash busting. There is definitely way more yarn here than I can get through in a year, like without giving it all away. And I don't intend to give it all away, because I've curated this stash because I want this yarn. I have projects I want to make with it, but I do need to work out how those projects fit me and work for me, and people in my life that I've sort of bought them for, then I need to be like, okay, well, when am I gonna make theirs? And yeah, I need time. I don't need yarn, I do need time. So yes, I mean, I don't know, maybe I should just quit my job and just always knit. Then I wouldn't have money for any more new yarn, and I would have time to knit what I already have. I mean, maybe this isn't a bad idea after all. I wouldn't have a home anymore, which is probably not a good idea, but yeah, the having more time. Oh, live to work or work to live. That's the age old thing, isn't it? So yeah, I'll get as far as I get, I think. And then maybe we'll reassess at Christmas. Like, maybe actually at Christmas I will decide that I need to get rid of some of it. But I'm not going to get rid of all the stuff I bought most recently. But I don't want to get rid of it. I don't know, are you like this? You have a massive stash, you just don't want to get rid of your yarn? It's just a toss-up, isn't it? Of like, I could have the yarn I really want, but then I don't have any space. Or I could have the space I really want, or then I don't have the yarn. And I'm definitely at that point where right now I need space more than I need yarn. So we'll try and use as much as we can and move it out into my wardrobe, because yeah, my wardrobe needs sorting through. I've got loads of jumpers that don't fit me anymore, but I've not got rid of them, because when I don't have anything else to wear, I can at least put something on, and it might be a bit tight, but around the house it'll keep me warm. Whereas if I make my jumpers, then I can just get rid of those jumpers, and I can have my jumpers in my wardrobe instead. That's the plan. I realised I was talking for far too long there, and my phone was going to start complaining at me. Does your phone do this really weird thing where, like, if it gets to 30 minutes it decides that it can't continue recording for you anymore and it just stops? Because that's what I've been having. If I start talking for too long, it starts to like cut my video and save and then start my video up again, but you miss a minute of conversation. So I don't know, my phone is just passive aggressively telling me that I need to stop talking. But I will stop talking. I have spoken a lot. I hope you can tell that I'm more excited for this now. I'm more excited to tell you what I've been working on. You know, compared to how I've been recently, where it's taken a lot for me to sit in front of the camera. I do feel better. I do feel more well within myself. And yeah, if you're going through a similar stage of burning out, I do encourage you to make the most of nice sunny weather and to go outside and just walk, even if it's just for like a 15-minute walk. I know that some people can't do that, and to those people I would say, in that case, then just feel free to take a break, like, for yourself. Like, you don't have to go out and walk. You can still take a break where you don't sit in front of a screen and you don't answer your phone, and you just sit in the calm by yourself doing something you want to do. But for me, I have found that I can walk a little bit. I can't walk too much, but I can walk a half-hour walk, as long as it's not up a crazy hill. I can walk a bit, and that has helped my mood a lot, to have the sunshine, to have the green, to have the blue sky. And it's making me feel better. So I hope you're well. Do let me know what you're knitting, because obviously it has been a while and I've been knitting my jumpers. What have you been knitting? Do let me know. And if you have any project recommendations, especially for a shawl that I can do for Christmas, then also please let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing from you, and yeah, see you in the next video.